Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you a new recipe. I know it's been a really long time since I've posted any recipe on my YouTube channel, so sorry about that, but it's just been a really busy start to the year, and I've also been taking care of my health more and more. It's just been I've been on a different diet. I'm not dieting, but I've been on a different diet, and it took me time to adjust to that. And that being said, I'm going to show you how to make a gluten-free bread today, a gluten-free Italian loaf today, and I really hope that you enjoy this bread as much as I've enjoyed this over the last few weeks. I've loved and I've really enjoyed making this so much. So I really hope you enjoy making this as much as I do. First of all, I wanted to come out and say Happy New Year, guys. Also, I know it's almost the end of January, but it's still the beginning of the year. So I thought I'll come out and say Happy New Year, and I really hope you're having a really healthy, happy, and prosperous New Year. So let's just jump into this recipe, and I'll take you over the ingredients, and let's get started with the recipe.
So first off, we're going to need some quinoa flour. You can also use some regular gluten-free flour or even oat flour. It's just you might have to adjust the wet ingredient quantities. Some natural yogurt. A tomato. I'm using a large tomato. You'll have to dice it up into really small chunks. 2 eggs. Ignore the third one. Some minced garlic. I'm using some organic minced garlic that's been pre-minced. You can also freshly mince the garlic. Some olive oil. I'm using Bertolli's. Some baking soda. Some baking powder. Some salt, and this is a mixture of a couple ingredients. I'll put the ingredients down below, but it has like lime peel, red pepper, some black pepper, some garlic, onion powder, stuff like that. I'll write all of them in the description box below. And finally, some dried basil leaves. You can also use some fresh basil leaves, but I chose to use some dried basil leaves because that's what I had on hand, and yeah, it's easier. So I went ahead and chopped up the tomato. I went ahead and chopped up at very small pieces. Then I'm taking a big bowl that I can mix in all the dry ingredients into. So first off, to the bowl, I'm going to go ahead and add some quinoa flour. Also, I forgot to tell you that I am using a little bit of gluten-free all-purpose flour. I'm using about half a cup of this because the total quantity of the flour is 1.5 cups. So I'm using half a cup of this and 1 cup of quinoa flour. Then I'm going to go ahead and add some baking powder to it, some baking soda, some salt. Now the salt is going to be to taste, but I'm adding about a teaspoon of salt, some dried basil leaves, about a teaspoon again, and finally I'm adding a little bit of that dried herb or spice mix. That's going to be about a half a teaspoon. I'm going to mix in all the dry ingredients together and make sure they're incorporated well. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and mix up all the wet ingredients in a different bowl. So first up, I'm going to go ahead and whip up the eggs. Now don't take 3 eggs, take 2 eggs, 2 large eggs. That's what I'm taking. I'm going to go ahead and whip them up really, really well. Now I'm adding oil to that. Finally, I'm adding some yogurt to it. So what I'm doing over here is I'm taking the yogurt because it's a little bit of thick, and even if it's not very thick yogurt, what I'm doing is I'm taking it in a different container or in the same container that I just added some oil to. So I use the same container to pour oil into the mixture, and now what I'm doing is I'm adding the yogurt into that bowl or into that cup. I'm gonna go ahead and mix it up and so that it becomes like a pouring consistency, and after that I'm gonna add it to the main mixture. Now what this does is the oil will help the yogurt release really easily from the from the mixing bowl, and also whipping up the yogurt in this different container will actually help mixing it up into the main mixture better. So I'm going to go ahead and add in all that yogurt to the main mixture. Mix it really well, so make sure that everything is incorporated together. finally, just go ahead and add in all the chopped tomatoes and garlic and mix it really well and make sure it's incorporated really well so that you can easily incorporate it into the dry ingredients. Now all that's left is to mix in both the wet and dry ingredients together. What I'm doing is I'm taking the dry ingredients and mixing in the wet ingredients to the dry ingredients. You can do it either or a different way. I mean, you can do it vice versa as well, but I prefer just doing it this way. Just mixing in the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients is sort of like an easier way. But anyways, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and mix it up really well. It's gonna be a thick mixture, but don't worry, that's how it's supposed to be. Make sure there's no lumps or dry lumps in the mixture, and also the fact that everything is incorporated well. And last but not least, all there's left to do is go ahead and either grease your bread pan with some coconut oil or ghee or butter, whichever one you want to. What I'm doing is I'm using parchment paper. That's easier. Yes, I would prefer and I would suggest you to use parchment paper. You can either crush up the entire parchment paper and try to fit it into the bread pan, or this works for me too. All I do is I just push the parchment paper into the bread pan and just kind of fold it and make some creases towards the corners, and this usually works for me. Alright guys, so I'm just gonna go ahead and give my bread mixture or the batter a final mix and make sure everything is mixed in really well. And I'm gonna go ahead and scoop in or pour in the mixture into the bread loaf pan that's lined with parchment paper, or if you're lining it or greasing it with butter, ghee, oil, whatever you do. But I would still suggest you to either heavily grease it or either line it with some parchment paper. So I'm gonna go ahead and add in all the mixture to the pan and also go ahead and level it off. Make sure you level it off so the bread comes out even. And that's it. Just go ahead and pop it in the oven for about 45 minutes to an hour into a preheated oven that's preheated at 350 degree Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius. And yeah, that's it. Make sure you check on the 45-minute mark because every oven is different and you don't want your bread to burn or even be undercooked. So just make sure you check at 45 minute at the 45-minute point. If it's done, well and good. If it's not done, give it a couple more minutes. I would say give it like 10-15 minutes more if it needs to. And that's it. Just serve hot, and I will show you how it looks when it's done. So the bread came out of the oven and I let it sit for about 30 minutes so that it would come to slight room temperature. It's still hot, but it's not too hot so that you can't even touch it. Of course, I'm touching the bread pan and that says it all. But I'm just gonna go ahead and take out the bread. See how easily it comes out? That's what I meant, guys. It comes out super easily if you put parchment paper in it. And I'm sure it's not gonna be very difficult to take out if you use butter or ghee. But yeah, I prefer parchment paper. Anyways, so I'm gonna go ahead and take it out onto a plate and show you how delicious and how fluffy it looks when you cut into it. Also, when it comes to breads, I usually use a serrated knife, the knives that have like a zigzag on their bottom. So just make sure you use that. If you don't have that, that's fine. It'll still work. A regular knife will still work. But yeah, it's just easier to cut it with a serrated knife. Just go ahead and cut it. It can be a little delicate since it is gluten-free, but it is super delicious and it's super easy to cut into. I couldn't resist taking a bite. So guys, I just wanted to show you how beautiful it looks from inside. It looks so nice and fluffy and vibrant and beautiful and delicious. It's just super fluffy and super spongy. It's fresh, it's gluten-free, and it's definitely not hard to make. So I really hope you give this a try and you enjoy making it as much as I do. And yeah, also you can also make it with regular wheat flour, but of course I choose to make it with gluten-free flour. So guys, if you enjoyed watching this video, please don't forget to give it a like, share and subscribe, and also stay tuned to my next video. It's a very exciting new video coming up. Until then, take care and I will see you next time. Bye guys.